You're listening to the Oracle Talk Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Sabrina Carpenter.
I'm Dasha.
Hey, I'm Billie Eilish.
What's up, guys? I'm Camila Cabello.
Hey, this is Tate McRae.
I love this station.
I love this station.
You're listening to Chasing Prophecy Radio, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. On the Oracle Talk Radio Network. Broadcasting live in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia.
If it's unexplainable, we're talking about it.
Whether you're a believer or a skeptic,
we cover everything where the unknown becomes the known.
And now, here are your hosts, Jenny Nicasio and Tom Callway.
Good evening and welcome to Chasing Prophecy on the Oracle Talk Radio Network. I'm Jenny Nicasio, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. We have a great show tonight. We're going to explore life, weird, crazy, on the fringe of the unexplained, and the secrets hidden in plain sight. Tonight, we're going to go deep dive into the heart of the most paranormally active places in America, a place where the line between worlds is thin, where UFOs, Bigfoot, portals, and military activity convey. That's going to be good. So if you're into the high strangest and real evidence and boots on the ground investigations, you're in the right place. So get ready, because what we're about to hear isn't theory, it's firsthand, it's raw, and it's just might change how you see reality. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bring Sean on real quick before we bring on our guests. Hey, Sean, how are you tonight?
I'm doing okay, Miss Jenny Nicasio. How are you?
I'm good, but it looks like we're having issues. Yeah, we're doing good, but it looks like a lot of the places we're not streaming on tonight. For some reason, we're having trouble streaming on 4 platforms tonight. So that's crazy. So I'm not sure what's going on. Let me just see. I'm checking UFO Paranormal. Let me see you, Pittsburgh Paranormal. I don't think we're streaming on there. It's like something's wrong on that. So we're not streaming on Oracle Talk Radio. What's that?
It's streaming on my YouTube and it's streaming on my Facebook page. I put them in there.
Oh, good. You did, because I don't know why it's not streaming on most of the Oracle Talk Radio.
Really?
I'm gonna have
to.
Hey
guys, listen. Well, she's
can you guys share? Go ahead, honey.
Can you share it, Kurt, please? Listen,
yeah, I don't know.
Last night's my last night with Jenny. I'm tired. Nothing against Jenny, nothing against Chasing Prophecy. I had a fun time with her, but I just do too many live streamings.
And, I thought it was because you're getting some flack from the other.
That too. We're not allowed to say that. But
we're not?
We're not allowed to say it. Oh, no. But also, well, she is right. I'm just here. Good evening, KHR 79.
Yeah, good evening, everybody.
I just want to thank Jenny for allowing me to come on and just help her out. You can catch me on UPRN Talk Radio 105.3 Mississippi, 107.7 New Orleans. And I had a lot of fun, Jenny. I appreciate you.
I'm glad you had fun.
Allowing me to come in and help you out.
Yeah, it's really been a pleasure having you on. I'm just trying to share the link on the other platform since StreamYard is giving us a hassle. So I'm not sure what happened. I don't know why it's not streaming on StreamYard. I don't know. Why does it do that?
I don't know. You know what? It's possibility. Do you have another show on your platform?
Yeah, there's another show on the platform. Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
It could be that. It could be that. It could be another. It could be a lot of different things. I'm not really sure. I do see now it's on Chasing Prophecy YouTube, so maybe it's trying to reconnect. But we have a really good show. But I just want to thank everybody for tuning in every week and being very patient and being great in the chat. It's been great while Tom is off. I really appreciate it. And I just want to throw this out here, public service announcement. If anybody out there would like, I would decide to do guest co-host until Tom comes back. So if there's anybody out there that has a little bit of a urge to try to get into the podcasting business, you're more than welcome to come on as my co-host. Check it out, try it out. So, and if you might like it and want to stay on,
do it, guys, ladies and gents, do it.
You don't have to have experience. You just have to have that little bit of, I don't know, that little niche. You like paranormal, you like anything that's beyond the scope of normal. So we'd love to have you on.
And you must love to talk.
Yeah, you don't talk. Yeah, and if you like to argue, I like a good argument, a good discussion. So that would be great too. If you want to come on and you have the questions, you got the platform, and I really appreciate you guys. And I hope just because Sean is leaving doesn't mean you're not going to come in here and participate, because I really enjoy having you in the chat. Everybody, Kurt, Kenneth, Holly, Griff, there's Squatchman, Joe Fox, all you guys. We really like having you come in. So, but without further ado, I just want to, I should have, if he would have came in a little bit earlier, Jeremiah, I might not screw up your last name. Is it Horstman? Oh, is it Horstman? I just want to make sure I don't screw it up, because I want to introduce you. Okay. Am I saying it right?
Oh, man.
Okay, great. Okay. So our guest tonight is Jeremiah Horstman, a seasoned paranormal researcher who spent 13 years investigating the Bradshaw Ranch, the infamous Arizona hotspot for the unexplained phenomena. From Bigfoot encounters in Pennsylvania to the multiple appearances on Coast to Coast AM and Beyond Skinwalker, Jeremiah's work has captivated both believers and skeptics. He's not here to speculate. He's here to share what he's seen, felt, and survived. Jeremiah, welcome to Chasing Prophecy.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. Especially
I think you're muted, babe. Jeremiah, check your mic. You might be muted. I think you are. You have yourself muted. I can't unmute you. Let me see if I can try. No, you're still muted. Try now. Sometimes it's a little confusing with those. Is that a new mic? You might not have the audio on. There you go. There you go. I can hear you now. There you go, babe.
Right?
Yeah,
right,
I can hear you.
Right.
So, Jeremiah, I've been doing some research on you. You have been around the block a few times.
Been around a while.
So, your military. Tell me about so you started is the military what brought you to this phenomenon, or was there something else, or have you always been interested in this kind of stuff?
I started doing Civil War reenacting in my youth, and World War II reenacting. Started when I was 12, and I think it was kind of an idea, especially on the part of my mother, to keep me out of trouble. And growing up in the Canonsburg area, of course, it was an easy drive to places like Gettysburg and all the other Civil War battlefields. So, and there was a very large reenacting community, if you will, there. And the year that I started that, which would have been about 1990, was just prior to the year that we started hearing strange noises on my grandmother's property, just outside of Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, on West McMurray Road. So, for anybody in the Pittsburgh area that's familiar with Canonsburg, it was once a rural road. When I lived there, there was a Black Angus farm immediately behind us. And across the street from us was forest, and the only solitary other farm on the road, which was called the McCloskey Farm. Other than that, it was all forested and very rural. If you go through there today, it's all built up. They took down the entire forest on both sides of the road, and there's I think they changed the zoning to high density residential. Back then, it was a different story. It was forest on both sides.
We
were hearing some very strange noises
Yeah, the McCloskey farm is true.
Yes, it was the McCloskey farm still there. If you're driving down West Memorial Road, the McCloskey farm sits more or less by itself on one side. Right across from that is our old house, which is a 3-story red brick house built by at the time, he was well known. There was a home builder by the last name of R.J. Rankin in the Pittsburgh area. He made a good name for himself and made a fortune building homes. He built that home, a dream home, as he was dying. And it was finished in 1930, I believe. It's a beautiful home. It's still a beautiful home. The man that bought it when we left restored it to its original 1930s glory. But we were hearing strange noises at night. We had at the time 4 dogs, and the dogs were making a lot of fuss at night. They were jumping up and barking. The ridge of fur staying up on the back of their neck and the back of their hide. And it was strange. We'd seen them bark at people before. We'd seen them react to things, but not like what they were doing at night there in 1991 outside of Cannesburg. And oddly enough, I was going to a chiropractor at that time, and I remember picking up, I think it was Pittsburgh Magazine, and the front article was about a group, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, called PASU, which is Stan Gordon's group. And I thought, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I was waiting for my chiropractor. I was reading an article, and it was describing noises that people had heard the Bigfoot creatures making. And for a second, my heart sank, and I was filled with fear because the noises that people were describing were the same noises that we were hearing outside the house at night. And it kind of came to a header just a few weeks later. My mother, who was working at Mayview State Hospital, was sleeping on that side of the house on the ground floor. There was a street light, the only street light on that side of the house, which cast a hue of light up against the windows, so anything running by the windows would be silhouetted. And she woke up one night with the dogs absolutely going nuts and looking toward the windows. And silhouetted up against the windows was something very tall running by. And the dogs, of course, completely went nuts over seeing this, and it was very hard to get them to settle down. The next morning, she told my twin brother and myself that something large was going through the yard, and she thinks maybe we have a prowler. But even for a prowler, the dogs were more upset than she thought they would be. And I told her about the article that I had read and that there was a number in it. So I went and I got the number without telling her, because she was iffy on it. She said, look, some people think we're nuts if we call somebody and tell them that there's a possible Bigfoot creature running through our yard. But I went ahead and called them at the age, I think I was 13 years old at the time. And I called the phone number for PASU. I think they had a 1-800 number at the time. And they sent 2 investigators the immediate weekend following. A man named John Stasko, who's still a wonderful field investigator. In fact, I think he's probably been investigating for well over 45 years, if not longer. I just actually reestablished contact with him a couple months ago. He's still investigating. He showed up as the chief field investigator at that time for PASU with his partner, a man named Devin. And they immediately wanted to know where we had seen this silhouette on the side of the house. So we showed them that. And then they said, we're going to look around for a while. And, if you would like to come along with us, we would appreciate it because we want to know where everything's at. And so they were asking a lot of questions. Again, I was only 13 at the time. And I was talking to John, and the other man, Devin, found a set of tracks below the house. It was 5-acre property. And closer to the Chartiers Valley Railroad was a tree line, and it was very muddy. And he found a set of tracks there, and he came back and said, I want to show you something. And he showed me the tracks. And again, my heart sank. I was very frightened to see that. And he said, we'd like to come back with your permission, and we're going to do a stakeout. And they did. They came back, and they started doing multiple stakeouts. And on September 21st in 1991, they brought, I think there were voice-activated headsets with them. And there were 2 investigators, the same man, John and Devin. And they wanted Devin and myself to go on the railroad tracks, which is immediately behind this property. And when we went down there, I could hear over the headset. My hearing was good then. The Civil War reenacting and World War II reenacting has destroyed my hearing, so it's not as good as it used to be. But they called over the radio, and they told Devin that there was 2 very large figures in the tree line. And they said it looked like they were heading in our direction. Now, as we were in the Chartiers Valley Railroad, which is still goes through that area, it's in a very deep ravine that was blasted and graded very long ago. And it's pitch black down there because the canopy of trees folds over top of the railroad. And so we're walking down there in pitch black. And I remember the man that was with me stopped me and told me to be quiet. And then I could hear over the radio they ordered us to start walking forward again. And as we did, something seemingly exploded on the railroad track in front of us. And what it was large pieces of rock that were sticking out on the side of the embankment were being pulled out and thrown in front of us. And I didn't remember this, but they said I was screaming so loud they could hear me over the headsets up on the top side near the houses. The other investigator was. I have no recollection. I was so afraid. I don't remember yelling out loud.
I bet.
Another rock came down and shattered on. I remember seeing sparks because some of them hit the iron of the rails. And we got permission to turn on the flashlight from the chief investigator, and Devin turned on his flashlight, and in front of us was this massive cloud of dust where the rocks had exploded. And a couple of them were huge. Even though they had shattered, they were very large. So it was clear that something very powerful and very big was tearing those rocks out and throwing them down at us. And so after a few of these rocks came down, he whispered over the microphone that these creatures, whatever they are immediately in front of us, but on the south side of the embankment, the same side that the other investigator was on. He said, we're going to move forward and hopefully we can flush it toward you. And I do remember grabbing this man's arm. He was big. He was about 6'7", he had a big red beard. I grabbed Devin's arm and I was afraid. And he said, be cool, it's okay. And he grabbed my arm and started pushing me along. He turned his flashlight out. So we're walking along now where these boulders were coming down in pitch black. Nothing happened. So a long story short, we were ordered after probably an hour to come back up through the backyards. And we would end up meeting up with the other investigator and a few other people that were my family members in the rear of my grandmother's property. As we were walking through the backyards, the clouds parted and it was almost full moon that night. And this bluish, you know how it is in Pennsylvania when there's a full moon or close full moon.
Yeah.
Full kind of bluish gray light illuminated the property that we were walking through. As we approached the corner property of my neighbors and my grandmother's place, we saw two very tall creatures leap out of the forest, and they were running from my right to left. And as they did so, we could see that they didn't seem to have necks. It seemed like their heads were sitting on their shoulders. And so they were turned in such a way where they were looking at the other investigator who didn't know they were there. He was shining his flashlight on the ground. And I froze. I was terrified because I could see clearly what these things were. They weren't human. And I remember they were very lanky. They weren't like the movie Bigfoot, that's just very powerful and muscular. They were very, very thin and lanky. And there was long, very long black hair on their arms, which I could see in the moonlight, swishing as they swung their arms. And there seemed to be, as they moved, a slight bobbing of the upper half of the body.
Crazy.
The best describe it kind of like when you see a pigeon bobbing its head, that's what it reminded me of. And I remember putting that in my official description to PASU at the time. And I was frozen with terror. I had my flashlight. I was bringing the flashlight up. And all of this happened, mind you, in just seconds. And the chief investigator yelled out, now. And we both turned on our flashlights and hit them both with our flashlights. The one that was following the first one turned quickly and looked at us. And I remember seeing these very big green eyes with a wide space in between.
Oh.
And it was, we must have frightened it. And it ran faster and actually bumped into the one.
Hey, Joe.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying hello to Joe Fox. He's in the chat.
And the one in front of it, that first one, when it got bumped, turned and looked at us. And then they continued to run and vanished in the upper portion of the front yard where there were some pine trees. That was my first Bigfoot experience. And luckily,
Wow.
I remember the investigators realizing how upset I was as a 13-year-old. The big man, Devin, leaned down and put his hand on my shoulder and he said, do you understand that what you saw statistically is very rare? And he said, for someone your age, you're going to remember this the rest of your life. And he said, I want you to remember that we were here with you, the details that you saw. And he said, we're going to ask you to write a very detailed report. He said, I know I was staying there with you, but I can't help you. It has to come from your memory. So we both were separated. We wrote our own separate reports for Stan Gordon's PASU. After that night, and since that night, I've been obsessed with anything and everything paranormal. I was so frightened at the time. But after that, this strange, I guess it's human curiosity. It's not strange. You want to see it again because it was such a fleeting moment so quickly. And I think this is what most people that have Bigfoot sightings will say. It happened so quickly and scared them so much, they wish they had more time to go back and see it again. And I was definitely in that frame of mind at that time. That was what started it all for me.
Yeah, and it stays with you all this time. So, Jeremiah, what is it about the Bradford Ranch that you believe the government doesn't want people to know?
That's a biggie. In fact, there's an actual investigation going on right now. We've been working on for about a year, and I'm limited to what I can say until they publish their findings. But it's focused on just that because the Congressional Oversight Committee is working on, I guess the best way to say it, are firms, not the military, but aerospace and defense firms, which are using black budget funds illegally in reverse engineering the aircraft. I don't know if any of you have heard of Jake Barber and his recent coming out that he was involved in UFO retrievals.
Jake Barber.
The Oversight Committee is extremely interested in that subject matter. And there's about 150, just shy of 150 facilities that are hidden underground across the country. Most of them are in the Southwest. One of the big ones is here in just outside of Sedona, Arizona, northwest of town. And they're very protective of what they've got out there.
Yeah, I bet. If anybody's just turning in now, we're talking to Jeremiah Horstman. He is a renowned paranormal investigator. He's been around for a lot. He's been in the military. How many years? 13? How many years? 13 years?
I wasn't actually in the military. I'm just a living history reenactor. So
wow. Okay, so you really reenact.
Those
Those pictures you sent me were really cool. We're gonna play some of those pictures too. And if you're watching anywhere else on TikTok or YouTube, you can see this whole live right now. If you go to Oracle Talk Radio Network YouTube channel, you can see it live right now. And if you have any questions for Jeremiah, he would be more than happy to answer anything that he can. Sean, you're quiet.
I'm just enjoying your guest. That's what I'm doing. But I'd like to know, you reenact, right? You Union or Confederate?
I did a Union impression, the 9th Pennsylvania Reserves. And that
wow, there you go.
Right
the 9th, okay.
Company A called the Pittsburgh Rifles.
You're a native
cool.
Pittsburgher.
I am.
Okay, me and Sean both are.
And in fact,
I'm from Dork.
Where at?
Dormont, Mount Lebanon area.
Yes, very familiar.
Yeah, I'm from around there.
Yeah, I had not been home.
I'm a Civil War buff too, but I don't reenact.
Oh, that whole area is very rich with Civil War history. One of the first really renowned surgeons was from Washington County, Pennsylvania. That area, again, history-wise, was just so rich. French and Indian War, of course. The French and Indian War came to its header right there at Fort Pitt, formerly Fort Duquesne. So I just, you go to Kennywood Park, and the ravine right beside Kennywood Park is where when George Washington was an unknown lieutenant and General Braddock was leading the British to take Fort Duquesne, that's where they went, right beside the ravine there at Kennywood Park. There's just so much history there. I love
so much.
Pittsburgh will always be home to me.
I'll tell you what, sir. I do believe when I would go in that area, because I lived out in Lincoln Place, West Mifflin area, and I'm not crapping you, man. There was a lot of weird sightings. We had a lot of Thunderbird sightings out in that area. Not so much Bigfoot, but a lot of Thunderbirds.
Yep.
Have you ever witnessed the Thunderbird?
There is something about southwestern Pennsylvania that really puts it in a different league of its own regarding the paranormal. And there's a man here who's a scientist. His name's Ben Lonetree. He's a dear friend of mine. And he's been researching the paranormal phenomena in this area for, since before I was born, since the 1970s. And his theory on a lot of the paranormal activity that's here, which I now believe is very sound, is where there's an area where there's a high water table. Now, naturally, Arizona, you wouldn't think has a lot of water here, but in this particular area, there's a lot of lava tubes. In those lava tubes, a lot of cold water running. The red rocks of Sedona are composed of iron, a lot of iron, and sandstone, and there's quartz crystal here. He believes that the piezoelectricity that's caused by the water rushing underground is causing positive and negative ions to rush out of the ground. And when they collide together, they're creating these tears in our reality, or the portals. The portals here in Sedona are probably among some of the most active portals in the world. And so when I came here and was first listening to a lot of what the locals were talking about, it had my attention. But I was thinking a lot of it, because it was so absolutely wild, was a lot of tinfoil hat talk. And it wasn't until I read Tom's book on Bradshaw Ranch and then went to Bradshaw Ranch for the first time I realized that none of it is tinfoil hat territory. It's a lot of very legitimate and tangible phenomena.
So, Tom, we're going to be flipping through some of your pictures. Can you just grab, what are we looking at right here?
Right there is an Anasazi cliff dwelling. The Anasazi are the indigenous who lived in this region. They lived all the way across the Southwest. So from California, Nevada, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, and even parts of Texas. They're also known as the Pueblo people. They call themselves the Hopi. So they still exist. The Hopi on the Hopi reservation are what's left. They're the ancestors of the Anasazi. The Anasazi in Navajo means the ancient wise ones, because they were believed by the Navajo and the Apache, who migrated to this area much later, to be able to wield magical powers. Now, their origins, and they'll tell you to this day, if you go to the Hopi reservation, they believe they are from the Star People. And they have a lot of oral tales about the Star People. The canyon you're seeing there is called Secret Canyon. It's one of the most mysterious and really difficult to reach places. There's been disappearances there. The most famous of which was a park ranger named David Barkley Miller, who disappeared there in 1998. He's never been. And so
he's never been found.
He's never been found, and he's just one of.
God.
There's other even more recent disappearances as well, and there's a lot of theories that maybe the paranormal has something to do with it. Until recently, and just very recently, since we've been concentrating our investigative efforts with a team, I came across two individuals who had worked in the U.S. Forest Service, with David when he was serving in the 1990s. And they told me that the official story was that he had just gone hiking and left a note that he was going hiking and would return after a couple days. But they said that because of the black helicopter sightings, which still happen to this day in the Sedona area, a lot of those black helicopters were seen coming out of and going into Secret Canyon. And he told them that he was going to take it upon himself to go into Secret Canyon and see if he could investigate what they were doing and what they were looking at. If he did do just that, and this is what I've gotten unconfirmed from two people that worked with him, he never came back. He went there to see what
he never came back. Oh my gosh!
Never came back, without a trace. They brought in dogs to track his scent, to no avail. It didn't work. And then they had two major searches, both of which were called off. He was never found. No trace of him at all.
That is crazy.
Do you think there's a lot of portals out in that area?
There is. There's
a lot of portals
at a site that's been fenced off by the government. So the government purchased, very strangely, 5 large ranches in the immediate Sedona area, northwest of town. And the circumstances at which they purchased those ranches are all very strange. And of course, the Bradshaw Ranch is among those that were confiscated, if you will. Now, Linda Bradshaw, Bob Bradshaw's wife, was very interested in being outside at night. She wasn't one that wanted to sit down and watch the TV, so she spent a lot of her time on the ranch. And the ranch is about 90 acres of property, and it's about 12 miles from Sedona proper. And it's down a rough road. You need a 4-wheel drive to get there with high clearance. It's a very peaceful setting. It sits down in a valley. And Bob, being part of the film industry and a professional photographer, had the good inclination to build a film set. So he made a movie set on one side of the property on the south end, and he called it Bitter Creek. And that was in 1972 that he built the film set there. And a lot of feature films were shot there. Elvis Presley was there. Henry Fonda was on the property. It became a place where Hollywood could come and shoot features. But the weirdness in the area had actually been there a long time before. As a matter of fact, when Elvis Presley was there in 1967 shooting Stay Away Joe, he had been very busy. It's now a little bit more well-known. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, was basically working him into the ground. He was doing one film after another, one tour after another, and he wanted a break. And so after they finished principal shooting of Stay Away Joe, they put him up in a house in the mouth of a canyon just north of Bradshaw Ranch. And that particular canyon now has a government fence across it. And the ranch house that's there is abandoned. When he was there, he stayed to catch up what he said, which is to catch up on his reading and to just relax. His wife stayed with him for a few weeks, and then she went home. to Graceland, and he stayed there by himself. While he was there, he was doing a lot of hiking, of course, and the canyons in this area are very wooded and dense. He went into that canyon, and he had an experience, and nobody knows exactly for sure what he saw, but he told his hairdresser, like so many people, they talk to their hairdresser about everything. He told his hairdresser that he saw something when he was there, and it changed his life. And his hairdresser apparently asked him, well, what did you see? And he said, I think it was an angel. So naturally,
An angel.
he was a very religious man, whatever he saw, whether it was a interdimensional being, which a lot of people see these strange interdimensional creatures here, or if it was some type of NHI, non-human intelligence that was alien, nobody knows for sure. But the way he perceived it, because it was very benevolent, and it reached out and it touched him, was that it was an angel. So when he left,
he saw an actual angel.
he saw an angel, and he claimed after he left, he wouldn't tell anybody about it. So he thought everyone would think he was nuts. So he only told his hairdresser about it, and his hairdresser made the story that when Elvis was in Sedona and they finished shooting Stay Away Joe in 1967, that in one of the canyons, and we know which canyon it was, that he saw an angel. And after that, if you look at that, roughly that time, when he left, he started getting back into gospel music, and he turned into much more soft. He was a polite guy anyways, but he was much more soft-spoken and apparently a lot more quiet after the experience he had here in Sedona in that canyon.
It's amazing
That
stuff.
is interesting. Amazing is like awesome.
There's so many anecdotes like that of people having their own experiences here. And one of our first experiences on the ranch, there's many, but the author of the Emerging Dimensions book, it's co-authored actually. Linda Bradshaw wrote about the first 60 to 80 pages, and then Tom Dongo, the researcher who's now a good friend of mine, wrote the latter part of the book. He spoke of a phenomenon that people kept seeing that they would mistake for a forest fire. And some people call it the fireball orb. It's a large ball of light that looks like a fire. And naturally in this area, the forest fire hazard is very high. And so when people see it, they would naturally call the fire department and report a forest fire, only to have the firemen come and see if there's no fire at all. And Tom said that he chased this thing for years, and he finally got a photograph of it from Bradshaw Knoll right above the ranch. Well, we were out there with a drone, with 2 cameras, and we were there for hours after dark. And we sat on a boulder, and my girlfriend had her back against mine, and I was facing another direction so we could have a view 360 degrees around us, and nothing happened. And we had both been saying, I got a feeling something's going to happen tonight. So we kept our cameras on. We were both ready. We had the drone in the car in case there was something skyborne that we could throw the drone in the air and catch it, and nothing happened. So after long enough, we started to get chilly and we were tired. It was very late, and we decided we're going to pack up and go home. So for the first time that night, of course, we turned off our cameras and put them on the back seat. The drone was all packed up, and we're now leaving. Now, the Bradshaw Lane is almost a mile long. It's just shy of a mile. And we're leaving through the dry wash of Lincoln Canyon. And then there's a sort of switchback that goes up a long hill to what's called the Bradshaw Knoll, which is about as far as the tourists will go now. As we were coming across that floodplain, I looked to my right because I could see something reddish orange, and it looked to me like somebody had started a bonfire right in the middle of the lane, the next switchback up. I remember turning to Alexander and said, who would do that? That's very insensitive. Why would you build a fire like that in the middle of the lane? If there's somebody down here, they have to leave. And so seconds later, we turned the hairpin turn. We're now facing where that fire would be, and there's no fire. So we pulled up to the very spot where I could see a bush, one particular bush that was lit up by this fire, and there's nothing there. So we wound down our windows, and we're trying to see if we could smell smoke or if we could see embers on the ground. You know, somebody had played a prank, and they had scooted a fire on and kicked the embers off the side of the road. Nothing. There was no smoke. There was no embers, nothing. Opened the doors of the car, nothing. And so we looked around a little bit more. There was clearly no fire there and no evidence of fire. And so we went home. And I remember the next day messaging Tom Dongo. I told him that fireball orb that you photographed, I'm pretty sure we saw it last night. But the devil of a thing happened when we saw it and we got around the bend to hopefully capture it and get a better look at it. It was gone. And he just kind of scoffed. He said, that figures. He said, I chased that thing for years. And he said, I was only lucky that I was able to get one photograph of it. So that was one of the very first paranormal things that we experienced at Bradshaw Ranch, only to be followed by many more things after.
Have you ever felt like you were being watched? Because you said you were looking, you and your girlfriend were like, ooh, not by a person, but by something else? I mean, do you think there was something else out there?
Yes. When Linda Bradshaw got a photograph, it's now one of the more famous things in this area. She saw a light pop up one night, and it looked like a movie screen. Like you go to a drive-in theater, and it was only for seconds. And it was gone, and her dogs were very upset when she saw it. And she thought, I wish I would have gotten a photograph of that. Well, she started turning a photograph and keeping the power on. The same light came back one night, and she was quick enough to get 2 frames. And in that is a disc coming through it. So she got the film developed, and you could see a data picture through this movie screen size spot in front and on the south side of the house. And this is the famous portal site. Now, when Beyond Skinwalker came, they had a lot of new equipment that I'd never seen or heard of in my life. One of the things that they brought with them was a camera that could actually read radiation, and it could read it in real time if it was moving. And they were on the south side of the field, the south side of the fence that's there now. And they got an image right in the spot where Linda Bradshaw took the photograph of the portal, but from the opposite side of a rectangular movie screen size void, and it was spitting out radiation. And the radiation was actually coming out in, I don't know if they call it like tendrils or small little plasma balls bouncing.
Nice.
So that was a new piece of equipment that they tested there, which they'd never tested before. And they caught the portal as it had opened up. Now, you couldn't see that with the naked eye. Only their camera was able to pick that up. One of the things that they were also focused on was they said, we understand there's rumors of military activity here. And I said, oh, yes, it comes with the paranormal activity for some reason, and we're working on that. And they said, do you know anything about where these underground facilities are? And I said, yes, because we came across in our exploring of the area a lot of fences that were in areas where they shouldn't be. And the fences actually had government signs on them warning people to stay out. And he said, what did you do? Go over them? And I said, well, actually, we went under some of them and over some of them, but yeah. And she said, did anything happen? And I said, well, one of the locations we went in 6 times. And there was a lot of very strange things inside that property that also should not have been there. But we were confronted by a man that was very large and armed, and he had a Department of Defense ID on a lanyard. And he came up, he said to me, I know where you've been. I know how many times you've been in there. And I know your girlfriend.
Oh, wow.
And I want you to know you can't ever go in there again because the people in there can shoot you. And he said,
you hear that, guys, in the chat? That's crazy.
After that first threat, I was taking the other accounts of people running into these military types a lot more seriously. And I saw the Department of Defense ID. It was a legit ID. I'd seen them before. So I put that in the back of my mind. I thought, okay, I'm never going back to that place ever again. And we investigated, we investigated another area in, surprisingly, the rear of a very, very popular canyon in the area called Boynton Canyon. And it's the one that gets most hikers a year. It's got a public trail. It gets over 50,000 tourists hiking on that trail a year. Wow. But the majority of the canyon in its length is beyond where the trail ends. And we were exploring that area back there. And one of our explorations, we heard the sound of voices to the north of us. And mind you, again, there's no trail in there. And if anybody had gone in ahead of us, we would have seen their tracks in the dry wash, but there's some sandy pits. We saw nothing. And there's actually thickets where you have to crawl through to get back there. It's so thick. I looked at Alexandra. I said, did you hear that? And she said, yes. And then we started moving again, and we heard 2 voices again talking to each other. And then the sound of a loud metallic hollow boom. It sounded like a bunker door or a metal door being slammed that was hollow. And it echoed through the canyon. I looked at her again. I said, did you hear that? And she said, yeah, it was to the north of us. And I said, well, there's nothing to the north of us. And so I said, what we need to do is we'll come back in a week and we'll bring the drone. And we'll fly the drone up the cliff wall and we'll look for any strange anomalies or anything that looks like it's camouflage. A week later, we returned with the drone. And we put the drone up just in time before the sun went down to get 3 complete flights of an area that we heard the voices from. As we were packing up the drone and leaving, the sun is now down early because the canyon walls are east and west, and they're over 700 feet high. So darkness in the canyons comes before the actual sundown. We were leaving, and instead of walking through the dry wash, we left the dry wash and climbed up into a really deep thicket where you have to duck to get through it. And I was very tired, and as I was walking through that area, I turned to Alexandra. She was about 8 paces behind me. And I looked forward again, and I thought I saw, in a little bit of starlight, somebody in black running from my right to left. And I said to myself, I'm really tired. There's no way there's anybody else in here. I'm seeing things. So as we got to roughly where the figure had disappeared, I saw these ancient Anasazi rock circles on the ground. And I turned out, I said, here, I know you've got that camera that can take photographs in the dark. And she said, yeah, what about it? I said, take pictures of these rocks because we never come back and it's too hard to get here. So she turned the camera on and she clicked the first photo, clicked the second photograph, then turned the actual flash on to be sure that we got the image. As she shot the third photograph, a rifle shot went off right behind us, and it was a suppressed 5.56 rifle. So we shot suppressed 5.56 before. It's what
That's crazy.
You know, a suppressor. Suppressors are, you know, in the movies, of course, you barely hear anything. The rifle's still quite loud, and it scared us so bad we both jumped up in the air. And I looked at her, and she looked at me, and she said, "That was a rifle." She said, "Somebody just shot at us," and we didn't need any more conversation about it. We both ran. And so we're running out through a thicket and we're getting, you know, scratched on our faces. And we were very bloody when we came back. We still had about 6 miles to go to where our car was. And when we got to where the public trail was, we were relieved because we could run faster on the public trail. At night, that late at night, there's nobody on the trail. As we're running, I could hear this thud, thud, thud sound behind me. And I thought I knew what it was. The old Vietnam era UH-1 Huey helicopters make a very distinct sound. The rotor doesn't sound like any other helicopter. I looked behind me, and sure enough, there was a UH-1 Huey helicopter right behind us, not even several hundred feet above the deck of the canyon. So it was below the canyon walls in the dark, and it was following us. And I remember distinctly seeing a red lamp on the bottom. I don't know if that was, but it was the only lamp on the helicopter. It followed us. So just before we got to where the public area of a local resort in the mouth of that canyon was, and it turned around inside the canyon, which means it was a very skilled pilot, and returned to the north. So I assume what they were doing was they were making sure that we left. They knew we were there, and they wanted to make sure that we were scared. And so we did leave. And that's among the most, that's probably the most harrowing close encounter I've had with these.
I would say so. I would say
so. Yeah. You know
what?
I would have been dead. I would have been dead. Because
Any questions? Please post them in the chat, guys, for Jeremiah. Now, what are we looking at here?
There's surveillance devices on the northwestern side of the Bradshaw Ranch.
Is that what that is? It doesn't look like a camera.
There's several rudimentary radar dish type devices strapped to trees. There is a camera. Strangely enough, the camera is facing skyward. And then there's also a vibratory device, which a friend of mine who serves as a drone pilot in an underground base in California, I sent him the photographs. He said, "Oh yeah," he said, "we have that exact same equipment in the desert around our post." And he said the device that looks like a metal accordion, he said that senses vibration, even the most mild vibration. The box that you see there is a data collecting box, and that box sends data to a satellite. So they don't even have to come to the box to collect the data that this site observes. It's collected by satellite from that box right there. We don't know who put it there. It's solar powered, as you can see. They actually added another.
So you don't know who did this?
No, there's no labels on the equipment. There's no name tags, and they did try to hide it somewhat on the western side of the property.
That's crazy. So they're looking for something.
Jeremiah, question to ask you. And I ask all my guests this. I said, why do you think they're hiding all this stuff from us? When it's the 21st century and we're not dumb people anymore. Why are they hiding it?
I think one of the main things, when I look at all of these things in retrospect of the past nearly 13 years now, all the paranormal stuff around here, it all comes back to the local portals that are here. Now, as of recently, we know that the Department of Energy was sent here specifically in the late 1970s and even more specifically in 1982 by the Department of Defense because they knew that there was a very active portal here. The Department of Energy was also tasked by the DoD in the 70s to locate other portals around the world. And of course, they found hundreds. There's hundreds across the United States, almost in every state. But they wanted the ones that were most active because the natural ones have certain geophysical properties that allow them to open. Now, they found 9 officially. There was only one in America. And the one in North America, right here in outside of Chanel.
Where do you think these portals are going?
I don't know. And if anybody does know, it's the folks from Sandia Laboratories, because Sandia Laboratories was here in 1994. And I know this specifically because I was able to talk to one of the former Air Force Office of Special Investigation officers who was here in 1994, because they had put an article on. Of course, there was no internet in 1994. So they put a small ad in the back of magazines that people might read. And the ad simply said in print with no image, "We're looking for people who have gone through portals or think they have gone through portals. If you have, dial this 1-800 number." And of course, they had thousands of calls. Most of them were kooks, and they were able to quickly debunk them. There was only one that got their attention, and it was a man who called them and said, "I came through a portal, that place called Secret Mountain." Now, Secret Mountain is the centrifuge of all the activity around here. It's just north of Bradshaw Ranch in very rugged terrain, and most of the government fences block access to this secret mountain. So when I heard this, they had my attention because I knew what they were talking about. They didn't even say where specifically, only that it was in Arizona. This man identified himself as George Arthur, as in the famous British poet. They said that they wanted to meet with him. They said, "Sure, I'll meet you in Phoenix, Arizona," and he named a hotel. So they came, and the men from Sandia Laboratories and 2 investigators from the Air Force Office of Special Investigations came. And right away, when this man met them in the lobby, they said he was very bizarre. He was very tall. He had an abnormally long neck, big eyes, ears that were longer at the top than a normal human being's ears would be. And then most specifically, he had very long arms that were disproportionate to his body.
Jesus.
So I started talking to him. They said, "First, Mr. Arthur, we would like to fingerprint you, and are you okay if we get a DNA swab from your mouth?" And he said, "Absolutely, please." So they took the fingerprints, they did the DNA swab, and they ran those off to the Phoenix FBI office to process it as quickly as they could, while these gentlemen continued the interview. As they interviewed him, they asked him, of course, "Where are you from?" He says, "Not so much the idea of where I'm from, it's from your perspective, it would be when I am from. I'm from a different time frame."
Oh my.
Yes. Now,
Wow.
That's
naturally,
time travel.
he cut them off, and they said, naturally, we're going to ask. He said, "You want to see this portal? You want to see me go through it?" And they said, "Yes, if you
Jeez.
don't mind, that's what we're all about." And he said, "Okay,
Dang.
you have to meet me at Secret Mountain." And he gave a designated place at this canyon, which led very quickly when they were describing it later. The Air Force Office of Special Investigator officer gave a physical description of the canyon without naming it. It's a canyon that is blocked off by the government. Most people don't even know it's there. It's a short canyon that curves sharply to the left. So as soon as he said that, Alexander jumped up and grabbed my arm, because it's the place where we trespassed 6 times and we got kicked out. You know, the man I told you from the DOD caught me. So right away,
That's
I grabbed
crazy.
exactly where they were talking about. This is long before we had gone in there even the first time. This is in 1994. I didn't move here until 1999. And so they go there, they meet this man at the mouth of this canyon. The men from Sandia Laboratories have all their equipment to set up. So they set their tables up, they do run equipment check, and then they turn to Arthur, George Arthur, and they say, "George, you're on. Is there anything we need to know?" And he said, "Yes, there is. I'm going to walk ahead of you, and the only thing I ask is that you do not walk too close to me." So they agreed. He walked ahead of them, and he disappeared, completely vanished.
Oh.
So all the people from Sandia Laboratories and the 2 Air Force Office of Special Investigators were stunned. They stood there not knowing what to do. And of course, nobody wants to walk forward to where this man vanished.
Yeah.
So finally, everybody turns and looks at the chief investigator, the man I finally got to get in contact with. And he figured, okay, well, I'm in charge here. So he walks forward, and he said there was nothing. There was no smell of ozone. There was nothing. Yeah, there was puddles of it had rained before they came. It was monsoon season. There were puddles of water on the rocks and nothing else. So he said they searched the canyon. They went in, and he said the end of the canyon, as it curves, ends at a 2,000-foot sheer wall. There was nowhere that if this man could have ducked out of sight.
Yeah, where he could have went.
There, the man walked through the portal. Since that
He walked through.
before, the ranch immediately in front of that canyon has been bought by the government and is fenced off.
Of course.
And it has not 1, not 2, but 4 fences blocking it off. That's one of probably one of the most highly guarded national security secrets in the area. And it's one of the focuses of the recent investigation, which should be releasing its findings probably within a month or so.
Oh, that's good to hear. We have a question. Richard Hawkins, Jeremiah, do you think it's possible that the government worldwide have also stumbled upon phenomena that are trying to control it?
Yes, that's a really good question. It is known, at least by our intelligence apparatus, that the Russians have sites like these and are controlling them. The Chinese definitely have several sites like these and are controlling them. And then the British government also has sites like these. And then there's a rumor too that the Israelis have a site the same. So
Oh.
those in addition to the United States. So that's a good question. And the answer is yes.
Yes. What are we looking at here?
That there,
light.
We went to Bradshaw Ranch one night with a dear friend of mine who actually loaned me some of the equipment to do the podcast tonight. A friend named Peter, who always wanted to see Bradshaw Ranch. And so we took him out there one night and he wanted to meditate for a while, which he did. And before it got dark, I walked him to the north end of the property and Alexander stayed on the south end of the property where the house and the old adobe are located. The camera was acting strange that night. So she stayed there and worked on it. When we left, the house, as if poltergeist activity went off the charts, came alive. There was furniture being moved, the sound of grass breaking, the sound of boards being thrown. It was just off the charts with noise. And there was actual footsteps walking up and down the lane, but there was nobody there. So Alexander was actually quite frightened as we had walked away. As soon as we returned and came within sight in the distance, all the noise stopped. And so we came back and she told us the house just was going completely nuts when you guys walked away. And we were used to that. We'd seen it do that before on certain occasions. Mm-hmm. We sat on a wall between the old adobe and the main house, watching the house. And there's a large picture window on the southeast end of the house. And we saw something silhouetted lean out from the window and look at us and then duck back. Then it leaned back again and ducked back a second time. And we all jumped up with our cameras and went rushing to the front door and went into the house, just clicking photographs in every direction. When we went to the main hallway, I looked to the north toward the master bedroom door, which is what you see in the photograph, and took a photograph there. I didn't see anything in the moment that I took the photograph because the flash kind of blinded me as it reflected off the glass. It wasn't until we came home that I realized there's what looks like a Zeta Reticuli gray on the right-hand side of the frame looking through the window at us.
Oh, wow.
No, I see something here. You mean over here?
And sticking up. In these cases, it's
right there.
A very high-quality photograph, but there is something there on the other side of the window. It does appear to be a gray figure.
Creepy.
Those figures have been seen even by the Bradshaws on the ranch and some other windows as well.
Creepy.
Interesting to us.
That's a good question.
We went back looking for on the window. We were looking for anything that might actually give away that there was nothing there. In fact, we were able to prove back something there. And so in standing on the other side, I asked Alexander if she could shoot video of it. So she was standing at whatever being was there was. And when we played back the video, there was this strange audio of like Stephen Greer's CE5 tones, the beeping sound. And we have no idea where that came from, but it was on that site where the gray alien seemed to show up that night.
There's so much stuff that goes around.
KHRs. This guy has a good question for you, Jeremiah. Does CERN play a part in any of your research?
Yes. They don't physically have a part in the research here, but they confirm what the DOE has already known, which is the portal sites here, which are natural, are activated by positive and negative ions colliding. And the electrical engineer who's retired, Ben Lonetree, who's working here, he was out proving this with his equipment. He made his own equipment. He was measuring the amount of EM that was coming out of the ground, the electromagnetic pulses, as well as electrons and ions. And at the Bradshaw Ranch, right in front of the house, really close to where the portal site is, were spikes of EM that were so strong that they were equal to that of a lightning strike. Very, very strong. And that's unheard of. That doesn't happen in most locations. So the positive and negative ions, which they use so much energy to collect and slide in CERN to open up these voids that are very small for a very small period of time, do happen naturally in certain places around the globe. Some places more than others. And according to the DOE, there's 9 places, and the Department of Defense, there's 9 places around the world, but only one in the United States that is that frequently active, and that's the one northwest of Sedona, Arizona. Very active. Wow. And actually, they bought it and fenced it off, and they've been monitoring it since. But what's really interesting is a piece of evidence just kind of fell into our laps not too long ago. And it was from Linda Moulton Howe. Linda Moulton Howe put a video out in December where she was talking about sentimental things. In that particular video, she was referencing her favorite cat, which had passed away. And she was passing, I think that the whole point of it was that energy, which we're all energy, composed of, it doesn't go away. When we passed on, our physical body, our vehicle, if you will, lays down and goes back to the earth. the energy, the essence of our soul goes on, because energy, as Einstein said, never dies. Carries on and goes to another place.
Never dies.
I'm sorry, Jenny, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you didn't interrupt. I was just agreeing with you. Never dies. We have a couple minutes left, but what was the most terrifying or unexplainable encounter you've experienced out there that you would like to share? And do you think about walking away for good after that happened?
No, it was even more inspiring. Probably one of the best things that we ever saw was actually not on the ranch. We were actually minding a friend's just outside Flagstaff, which is north of here. It's about 45 minutes north. There's a small community called Mountain Air, and it's a small forested community. And a friend of ours had a rental property there, and we would go up and mind it for him because he lived in Apache Junction. And it was a regular thing. When the guests would leave, we would go up and tidy up, make sure everything was good, and report back to him. While we were there, naturally, we would go out to dinner. We would go to the local bookstore, and then we'd go home. So it became a pattern to do the same thing. On November 28th in 2008, we were coming back, and of course it's dark. The main road from Flagstaff to Sedona is called 89A, which is a very rugged road going through switchbacks and mountainous forested terrain. As we were headed south, just outside of city limits, we saw a light coming out of the sky from our left to right. And I remember turning to my girlfriend. I said, "Look at that. That's a strange direction for a plane to be landing at Pulliam." Pulliam is the small airport up there on the south side of Flagstaff. As we came up a hill, there's a sign for a place called Griffith Springs Road. As we came up the hill, this craft was suddenly right up there on the left side of the road, right over the treetops. And it was a barbell or peanut-shaped craft. And it was massive. It was bigger than our house. And we're looking at this thing right at the treetop. It's massive. There's no kind of thrust. So the scientific method, you're looking for things to make it logically, it can't be there, it can't be doing this. The trees are not swaying. The floor of the forest under it was glowing in kind of an amber gold color from the craft. And we're looking at this thing. It's now stationary right above the trees. And I was utterly terrified because of the size of it. And somehow the feeling inside was that I'm not in control. I kept thinking, I'm not in control of the situation. Alexandra, who's from the UK and very British in her mind, is not reacting emotionally at all. And she starts to slow down. And I remember hitting her shoulder and saying, don't stop, hit the gas. So she accelerated and we went past it. At one point I got up the courage to look over my shoulder just seconds later, and what looked like a bluish deer spotting light shot out of it and hit the road behind us. So I turned forward again and I told her, there's a spotlight, keep going. We drove down the hill and then home from there. Couldn't sleep that night because we were so stoked. And she reacted differently. She was not afraid of it.
She wasn't afraid.
She wasn't afraid. Whereas I was actually terrified. So I don't know.
You were terrified.
If I could see it again, I would definitely like to see it again, regardless of fear. But that was probably among the scariest things I had seen since we came to Arizona. And that wasn't at Bradshaw Ranch. That was north of Sedona. That was just at the Flagstaff city limits.
Well, this has been a very informative, interesting as hell show. I'm so glad I found you. I kept on bothering you on Facebook.
No bother. No bother. It's such a pleasure to be able to.
I'm so glad we finally got to have you on the show. So are you living in the area now, or are you living in Arizona?
I'm in Arizona. I'm in Sedona, Arizona. So I'm actually about 20 minutes away from that portal site here in West Sedona. That hot zone, if you will, is about 12 miles from West Sedona. So it's not a far drive, but you have to have a high clearance vehicle and be ready for some rough road to get out there.
To Mark Eddy, that's the California girl in me. You ever see California people always love to wear their sunglasses above their head, Okay. But Jeremiah, I have a question before I just let you go, because I told you it's an hour show. David Politis, he had a show and he talked about Sonoma. Do you think that this Bigfoot is going in these portals that they see?
I do. I'm actually almost 100% positive, because I've actually met witnesses and heard of other witnesses who saw the portal appear and saw the Bigfoot creatures come out of it. One of the best.
Wow.
Two women from Century 21 were selling a property, and they came over a rise to take some photographs. And in broad daylight, the two creatures were standing on the same property that this other witness, completely unrelated to them, said to there are two Bigfoot coming out of a portal, and then they guard the portal when it opens on my property.
And they guard it.
Two accounts were of the same area. They didn't even know of each other. And so, yes, the Bigfoot creatures here are directly related to those portals, directly.
Do you hear that, guys?
Cool. I'm going.
Bigfoot in the portals.
I'm going.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming on. I want to have you back on with my co-founder of Oracle Talk Radio, Tom Callway, comes back. I want you on with him because he would love this. And I think there's so much that we can talk about. This could go on and on.
There's a lot to talk about. Big hours.
Yes. Yes, hours and hours. But thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it. And you have a wonderful, wonderful night. And come to Pittsburgh. Go to Bushy Run Battlefield. Do the reenactment there. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me. And I miss the Pittsburgh area. And I want to send my love to everybody back there in Pittsburgh and Canonsburg. It's the best place to
back, dude.
Come on back.
I will.
You can go to the Bushy Run Battlefield reenactment this year. Hopefully they'll have it in August. Last year we had tornadoes that blew some trees down.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
there
would have been reenactment wearing kilts at that one. So there's kilts.
Yes, been, yeah. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, that was great, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. All you people, I see you must be Jeremiah's fans. So thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate it. And like I said, please share the link. That's what makes us keep going. And I just love you guys so much in the chat, Mark and Joe, and there's so many of you. Oh gosh, there's so many ones I didn't even get to say hi because Kurt. When we start talking, Liz, I can't say hi because I want to make sure we have our eyes and ears on the guest. But we appreciate you being in the chat. We really do. And this was a really good one. I'm so glad I finally got a hold of him because I actually I must have talked to him. Geez. A lot trying to get him on the show. I mean, I do that. I'm a little persistent. When I want somebody on the show, I keep bothering the hell out of them. No, I'm not. No, I'm persistent.
No. Hey, it was a pleasure, Jenny.
Yeah, I'm going to miss you, Sean. I'm going to miss you. So John Ventry might fill in a couple of times, but I was thinking about having guests. So if anybody out there who has an interest in the paranormal, the supernatural, cryptics, UFOs, UAPs, ghosts, Bigfoot, what else? Thunderbirds, fairies, elementals. I would love to have you as a co-host. So you don't have to have a lot. You just have to have the desire to talk and discuss things and argue. If you're a skeptic, that makes it even better because I like to have skeptics on. Sean used to be a skeptic with the UFOs.
Yes, I was.
I think we converted him over. But John Ventry said he would help out a couple shows. See, I like to have this talk with like I'm talking to you right now. I like that. And then sometimes we don't have a guest. I just want to bullshit, Right. And I can't do that with myself because sometimes I think if I do that by myself, I'm having multiple personalities, like, Chad, how's it going? Fine, thank you.
No, man, Jen, if I can do it, you can do it, man.
I don't know.
Seriously. Yeah,
you have to have a personality for that. You do. But before we go, Sean, I want to just ask Mr. Predictor to ask you. I mean, you can ask him one last question before you go. Is there something you'd like to ask Mr. Predictor?
Mr. Predictor, will my podcast journey get a lot bigger?
Do you hear that, Mr. Predictor? He thinks he wants to be the next Joe Rogan.
Pretty close. Am I the next Joe Rogan? Mr. Predictor.
There you go.
What did he say? I didn't hear him.
You can rely on that.
Ooh, cool.
See? He wants you to be the next. Mr. Predictor, should I just hang it up and go to sleep?
Yes.
Okay. No. No, I have a lot of going on right now, and my plate is really overflowing. But seriously, if anybody wants to be, that goes for you too, Jeremiah. If you want to come on as a co-host, you're more than welcome to. But it's going to be a long, how many months now? 10 months. But I think we can do it. I can do it. I can do it.
I know you can do it.
And I also have Pages of Faith, which it's growing. Did you guys? I want you to go check out my Pages of Faith and see how many videos I have and see how many subscribers I got.
And they're
growing
good.
and growing.
They're good. She's
And people
actually
ask me,
changing me.
what did you say?
Oh, what I say? What
People
I say?
think, how can you talk about faith and Jesus and God when I talk about aliens and cryptics? Because to me, Jesus and God is the creator of all these creatures and these different realms and these different beings and aliens. And
we can debate on that one, Miss Jenny.
no, I know we can. But seriously, no, it's growing. It's growing.
Awesome.
Well, anyways, it's been
I'm proud of you.
I'm proud of you too, Sean. We come a long way. It's been 6
Yes,
years.
we have. Yep, we have. We have
6 years. Chasing Prophecy's been on for 6 years. I go and I come and I go back, but I'm always there. And it's growing into the network. And if you have a podcast and you want to switch over, if you're on someone else's network and you want to switch over to one that you can have control and don't have to worry about someone telling you who you can't have, one you can go on, who you can talk about, you won't have that with us, me and Tom. So you can bring your show over here and let it grow. And you have control, creative control. Okay, Sean, baby, I'll see you later. Everybody in the chat, I love you so much. Share this link, share it, and if you're watching it on the recorded episode, you can tune in every week. Next week we have a really cool guest coming on. He had a near-death experience, and he's going to talk about it. And cool. This one is the real deal. Okay, guys, we'll see you later. Have a great rest of your week. Later. I love you.
Bye.